right, so this is a great concept that gets tested not only in the quant side of the test, but also in critical reasoning once in a while. Sometimes critical reasoning has a bit of a mathematical bend to it, and this is one of those things I've seen come up before. So I want to illustrate what's going on here with a simple example. Let's pretend that we had two groups that overlapped. Okay, let's say we had people that studied Spanish and people who studied French. And if I told you beforehand that we had 10 total people that study Spanish and 100 total people that study French, and if the overlap between these sets was 5, let's imagine what that would do to the percentages as we're looking at these percentages here, like the relatable percentages we'd get in this situation. Of people that study Spanish that also study French, it would be 50%, because that 5 is a huge portion of the 10 people who study Spanish. So of the people who study Spanish, those who also study French would be 50% of that population. But for people who study French, the percent of the population of that studies Spanish as well is only 5%, because this section is so much larger. So you can say that the overlap represents a smaller percentage of the larger group. And that's the same idea we have in this question. So this is going to end up being a C answer, because we definitely need both of those statements together. And what we find out is, since it represents only 20% of the X, but a total of 30% of the Y, X must be larger. That's why it represents a smaller percentage of the X. And so this is a good concept to just kind of visually understand. If you have, the overlap's going to be the same number for each side, right? It's 5 either way. So another way of thinking about this is 20% of X is equivalent to 30% of Y. Now, if you cross multiply, or if you multiply both sides by 10, you get 2x equals 3y. And in this situation, if we divide by 2 on both sides, maybe that makes it even more obvious. X is equal to 150% of y. So x is bigger than y. You have to multiply y by 1.5 to get x. And that means x is larger than y as well. So you can represent it this way, but I think just having this big picture idea that whichever one is represented by a smaller percentage is going to be the bigger side, that's all you really need to solve these types of problems.